Well, my friends, this is Jay, and I am back with step number 5 of my 2021 knit along, my sweater for 2021. Well, how you doing? Okay, so it's a long process, but look where we started and look where we are. Okay, yes, it takes time. But you don't have to ever be in a rush, because once you get the steps down, it's just like making your best mac and cheese. You just know that recipe without even thinking. Well, you will know this sweater formula, the way I put it together, and follow the steps. They're pretty much always the same. This style, number 1, is the bottom-up sweater. So let me see if I can get us all on the same page, or for you to get your sweater in the same place that I have mine. All right, so first on the checklist, when I left, you were to knit all the way up to however many inches that you need for the back of your sweater, from the top of your shoulders down to where the bottom of the sweater is going to be. You know, and I was using 20 inches. I'm just trying to make it easy. I'm a little shorter than that, but that's all right. I'm making it easy numbers. 20 inches, say. Then you were to start working each front. And I suggested that everyone, everywhere, every size, 2 diamonds turned out to be enough. I didn't think we need to go into a 3rd diamond, then have to go into the diamond to try to make it fit the top. See? 2 diamonds looked really nice. But then you had to continue the front lace on each edge of the sweater. Now you see how nice that looks, that we took the front up, which will not only work as a front pretty lace border, but it will also be an automatic button band if you wanted to add buttons to your sweater later on. This is and can be the button band, because it has yarn over eyelet holes that you could use for buttons. Does that make sense? Alright, now the next thing we want to do, I'm going to pull this down a little bit now so that I can get a little closer. Let's see where I am on my camera. Bird is back. Hey, Bird. Okay, so now, here we go. Alright, on that side. Alright, as you can see, I have my 2 fronts, and I still have them pinned in order not to have all that fabric flopping around. This is all in one piece, and sometimes it can get overwhelming with all this yarn kind of whipping back and forth. So I have pinned my 2 fronts once I worked them up. Now, for me, my back is 20 inches. So naturally, I wanted to work up. You need to leave anywhere from, depending on how tall you are, from 5 to 6 or 7 inches from where you want to stop this front to the back of your neck. Now, I think I'm going to be a little short, so I may add some rows, not inches, but I may do an extra row or 2 once we decrease these fronts. But you can see that it is taller or longer than where my front stops. Does that make sense? So, normally I stop about 16 inches. It takes about 16 inches to get up to where I need. But the easiest way, instead of measuring, the best thing to do is to go by and count these eyelet holes. See there right here on the edge of the sweater? See all these little holes? If you take it and lay it out on something nice and light, a counter or towel or something that you can actually see each front, it took me 19 repeats, or 19 of these little eyelet holes going up the front. I laid it out and I counted from the very bottom, the first hole, and then went, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to where I felt I needed to stop, close to my normal 16 inches that I would normally stop, which would give me 16 from 20, at least 4 inches. I may have to go over that a little bit because this is not sealed in stone. We are working this sweater from scratch. And if we need it, it's not like a pattern. If we need to change something to fit our body, that's what we do. So, instead of just measuring, I had 19 of these repeats, or 19 holes up the front on this side when I finished. All right, so when I finished that, now we had already stopped the diamond, remember, and we just went into stockinette when you did the last purl row. Then you just worked on the front, knit back, knit, purl, do the front, knit, purl, work the front all the way up. Then, so that I can stop this lace, as I see that I've gotten up to, where I need it to be, then I would, do a knit row, a purl, and then knit back. And as you can see, that closes off the lace, and it also points my needle in this direction to the front edge. That's the main thing. I want your needle should, when you stop, should point in this direction. Does that make sense? Here's our arm space over here that we will eventually add a sleeve to once we connect the front and the back. Now, when I come to this side, I do the exact same thing. Now that I finished this, now I know how many holes to count, or eyelets. See right here, I just start at the very bottom and count up and get it to the same number. I had to go up to 19. When I reached 19, whatever it took to purl and then knit back across to seal off these stitches here, all right, and then have my needle pointing in this direction towards the front, then that's what I did to make these two match. Now my two fronts match each other. I have the two diamonds, I have the lace, and have the same number of repeats. Now what could be better than that? Okay, but it takes time to understand all this, and you're not going to get it the first time. And you have to, like I said, we are practicing. Next thing, so that we can start decreasing, what we're going to do is to bind off these stitches of the lace right here, and then we will decrease a few stitches in this section, right in here, so this will narrow and go up and meet the shoulders about right in here somewhere. And that's going to leave a nice big opening here and here where that will represent our neck opening, because eventually we got to pick up stitches and do a little 1 by 1 ribbing to match the bottom. So I have two fronts that match. Check. I have a back that if I need to add more stitches, the back is still on my double pointed needles. This is the only way I do it now. I make sure I use double points, or circulars, not double points, I'm sorry, my circular needles, so that I can knit from either end when I get ready to do the 3 needle bind off. I don't have to change needles like I used to do way back in the day. All right, so we check that box. All right, let me get ready. I will come back. You take notice, take it in, take it slow. The tape will always be here. All you have to do is just work it little by little. I will come back and we will be ready to work one side. I'm going to show you how to decrease on one side and then decrease on the opposite side as we work our way up to the shoulders. Back in just a minute. All right, so I'm back for us to get ready to start. I forgot to show you something though as I ended. And as you got to stop each front, leave a nice long tail so that we don't have to start and connect right on the edge. So you see all this yarn here, I just left about an arm's distance, just stretch it about a wingspan amount of yarn. And way back in the day, I knew other people use this, but way back in the day, my friend, when we were knitting, Judy and I and Paula, when we were knitting, Paula really enjoyed saving these little bread ties. You know, these little things that come on your potatoes or your bread. Now, it's nothing. I mean, she did, it was already in use, but she really got us to save and to use our bread ties. She would tell us all the time, oh, you got to save them. You got to save them. You remember Paula? I know sometimes she watches, but so look, she would stress it all the time. I got so scared. Look, I think I have a whole plastic bin full of I was scared after that to throw away the bread ties. But take one of these little ties, and then you could take the extra yarn and turn it into a little bobbin. and you just wrap it around just like that, and then that's when, and then you can stick your needle in there just like you saw with the cap. So now that we're ready to come back, I can unwind this a little at a time, and you don't have a lot of yarn hanging, just hanging everywhere, because my friend Paula got me hooked on my little brat ties. See? So now it's a little neater, and it didn't cost me anything because it's free. So be sure to save those. Like I said, a lot of people already use it, but for those that are new and never thought of it, okay, you got to start saving your ties. All right, so now I'm going to lay these aside, and I have this one ready to go. We're getting ready to stop or to bind off these stitches on this side. I won't get into it when we're wearing the sweater. This is really your left side. So once I knit across and I have the needle pointed in the right direction, and now I'm ready to turn the sweater so that I can purl, and I'm going to have to bind off on the purl side. You remember how we had 12 stitches? We had 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then there were 9 other stitches, 9 extra stitches to make up this lace. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we want to bind off the first 12 stitches. That's the first thing we need to do once we're ready to do this section or this part. So let me see if I can turn. Let's see if I can. I may have to unpin it. I've got my little bobbin there, see? Maybe if I just unpin it, then I don't have to, well, I'm going to have to turn it anyway. Just so that you can see. Yeah, this will work fine. I'll turn it now. Let me just check the camera, see where I am. See if you can actually see what I am doing. How about that? I can even come in just a little bit. All right. So now I take, I have to have another, another set of needles. So I'm just going to bind off. Now these are really long. Man, I should have got some short ones. Should have got my short ones. All right. So I'm just going to bind off in knit stitch, because this is going to be covered when we pick up. So I knit the first stitch. Well, I better bind off in purl because we have to purl across all these other stitches. Sorry. So I knit the first stitch. You don't have to. You can just start with a bind off stitch. And then I reach back and I bind off that stitch. So that's one. Now I'm doing it in the purl because I forgot we have to purl these stitches on the back. That's a lot easier to remember to do that. So the yarn over. I tell you what, I'm going to get my short needles. These are too long. Okay, I reached over and got my shorter bamboo needles, a little shorter, because these long ones are getting was much too going to cause a lot of problems. All right, now I'm going to bind off on the wrong side. That's the main thing, and I'll just use a purl stitch because we have to continue to purl across. Go ahead though and get one of any kind of little marker, something that you can pick, and go ahead and count your first 12 stitches, because you'll forget how many you've bound off. So I've counted 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and I put my little mark there. I know that represents that front edge lace. It's 12 stitches. Now I'm going to simply take my needle, and I'll just use a short one. All right, now I can start binding off, and I will bind off in purl to make it easy. And then we can purl the next stitch. So now I don't have to worry about counting or like, oh, did I get 12 because I marked it. So now I can bind off a lot easier and not worry that, oh gosh, what number am I on? So I'm binding off. I hope I'm not up too high that I'm on camera. Oops, I got a split yarn. Oh no, I got my yarn split. Let's see, can I move that stitch back? Hold on a minute. I split my yarn here. See, can I get it back? I can. There we go. Now put that stitch back. Now reach back and just take your time. Like I said, you can tell that I have not used straight needles in years, but I have a lot of them because back in the day, before I really got into my circular needles, I just thought the straight needles was the bee's knees. Okay, see, I have it marked so I don't have to worry so much. I just concentrate on, oh, my yarn is splitting. Binding off, and I'm binding off in the purl stitch. As I come to each one, I purl the stitch, then I reach back and I bind it off, just like that. Come to the next one, purl, and my yarn is on my little bobbin, my little homemade. Almost to that mark. Oh, I hope it's on tape. I hope it's on tape. If you think making these videos, they're fun, especially when people get it and people, you know, send you back good messages and, oh, gee, I'm going to give it a try, you know, or whatever. It's exciting. But people, they are work. All right, see, I'm coming up to the last stitch before that marker. Okay, but that last stitch has to be bound off too. This one right here, the last one. So I have to reach over. Just reach over to the next stitch. I can take the marker out now. I know I've done the 12, but I have to reach over. Don't take it out before you get to it. Now I know I have bound off 12 stitches. Then I can just continue to purl across. Just like this. Just purl across the, let's see, can I just purl a few and then I'll stop. And then we'll turn it back around. I won't waste time on, waste the battery purling across. But you can see I didn't need that long needle because we're getting rid of some of the stitches. And I can just take my yarn off my little bobbin here. And then just purl across. Now I'm going to stop and turn it around. I'm going to move that just for a second. Let's see, can I turn it around? That's my needle hitting the tripod. Alright. Woo! Now you see we have bound off, and make sure I'm on camera. Oh, look at that. I still have my front pinned to the back so you can kind of get a feel of it. Let me just check it first. Okay, I'm going to pull in a little more so you can see it. And then I'm going to pull it down too. Okay. See right here. Now I'll move this one. Here's where we bound off the 12 stitches. And I make sure, and on this one, well, I left my marker on this one, so that's good. I have my marker left in. But if you took your marker out, make sure you count 12 stitches, just like I shared with you. Don't worry about this edge, because when we pick up stitches, that will be covered. Now, all I have to do is, I'm still purling. I'm on that side. I'll purl back. And then once, I'll purl across, and then I'll knit back. And once we knit back, then we're going to start our decrease. We'll start the decrease on this side, and I'll show you the one to use. And then, I'll show you eventually how to start it on this side. Does that make sense? And now you can see the bind off edge that stopped the lace as we go up the front. Here's my back neck. There's the front. And as we work up. Alright, let me purl across. I'll come back as I'm knitting to show you how to start decreasing to kind of curve the neck a little bit as we go up to meet the shoulders. Does that make sense? Creating our neckline. Step 5, I don't know if I said it, but it'll be in the description box. Step 5 is your neckline. Let's see, how did I put it? It's your neckline and the shoulders. Does that make sense? Alright, I'll be back in just a minute. Alright, so I finished purling across the row after I did the bind off. Now I'm knitting back towards the front edge. and I want to knit up. Now, on this side of our neck, we want to curve and just come up so that we will eventually meet the back. So I need a stitch that leans to the right. So we're going to just simply do a knit two together, decrease, real simple. So I am knitting up to this edge, but I don't want to, I want to stay away from this stitch right here. You see that last stitch? So I'm going to knit up to 3 stitches or the 2 stitches before this last stitch. And I'm going to knit these 2 stitches together. I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together. Then this last stitch I will just knit. Alright, this is the decrease we will use on this side of the sweater, because we want it to lean as it goes up. We want it to lean to the right, or in this direction. Now, on we're going to decrease, make 8 decreases. Every one, everywhere, every size, every right side row, you're going to make this same decrease. You're going to come up to the 3 stitches before the end, and then you'll knit these 2 stitches together, and then just knit that stitch. That's just to kind of help keep a clean edge. So when we get ready to pick up stitches, hopefully the edge will be nice and clean. So now, I've done that, so that's my first, and you need to keep track of it in case you just get get called away or pulled away or just can't remember. So of course you need to get your marker and just keep track. So I've done 1, so that's one decrease on that side. All right, so now I'll simply take my work, turn on the wrong side, purl back. I'll just purl back on this side. Then again, every right side row as I come up, like I said, it'll be the last 3 stitches, knit 2 stitches together, knit 1. And then I will see you, let me work on my side, finish this, and then I'll come back and let you see what we have. We can add more decreases if we need to. But let's start with 8, and then we will see. All right? I'll be back in just a minute. All right, I'm back, and as you can see, I've done some work off camera, and now I want to get us in the, go and do our checklist again and get everyone in the same place. All right, first of all, I had to go back and check my own videos. It's been so long since I have worked a bottom-up type sweater, and so you have to kind of get back in the frame of mind. Which sweater am I working? All right, now this is what we had when I left. Everyone had bound off the front lace edge, and I said everyone, every size, everywhere, go ahead and decrease. On this side of the sweater, decrease 8 times. And I'm coming up to, so I did my 8, and then I went back to check. All right, now, small to medium, you're going to be done with decreasing. You have 8 decreases. Now, large to 1X, maybe creeping over a little to 2X, we need 10. And then if you are just a taller person, 5'8", 5'7", 6 feet, you're going to need at least 12 decreases to make up this opening for the neck. And it's going to look scary because the neck's going to look real big, but remember, we're going to pick up stitches. So again, small to medium, you're done with your decreasing. Now, so you hold just for a minute. I'm large to 1X, maybe a little over. I am doing 10 decreases. So I'm up to number 10 on this side, as you can see. And this on this front, all I had to do was knit up to the last 3 stitches. Just a reminder, the last 3 on this side, we need a decrease. As you can see, it's leaning to the right. So I simply, the last 3 stitches, knit 2 stitches together. See, I'm working on these straight needles here. Knit 2 stitches together, and then knit the last stitch. So that keeps the edge. I was trying to keep the edge straight so when I come back to pick up stitches, I've got a place. All right, so now I have made 10 decreases for my size. I'm right in the middle, large to 1X, maybe a little over, but all right, so now I simply want to, everyone, everywhere, whatever size you're working, whether you've done your 8 for small to medium, 10 for large to 1X, or 12 for, if you're broader, across the shoulders and, in the shoulder area. All right, now I want you to we need to knit. All right, watch. I'm going to purl back. I've just finished my 10, so I'm going to purl back. Now watch, I'm going to knit a row, purl back, knit another row, and then when I purl back, the needle will be pointing in this direction because we're going to do the 3 needle bind off. So I want everyone, everywhere, once you're done, your needle is going to be pointing to the edge or to the sleeve edge. Does that make sense? So now I'm simply going to go ahead and knit my rows, my extra rows to get up to my shoulders, and then I'll come back and show you how to do the decrease on this side of the sweater, on this front. Does that make sense? So everyone has a number now, and just take your time, and then I will be back in just a minute. All right, this is what you should have. Voila, for one side of your sweater, one front. Okay, so a nice clean edge here going up. All of this is we're gonna pick up stitches and put ribbing here. So all this is just gonna flow into the curve fine. Like I say, I just do it very simple so that I can repeat the steps whenever I want to do a sweater. And then I did the last, couple of rows that I shared with you. And then my needle is pointing to the sleeve edge. That's the main thing because we will eventually, to connect the front to the back, I love the 3 needle bind off. It just works for me, and that's just, it just turns out pretty every time. All right, now the next thing I need you to do, go ahead and count your stitches. We should have been counting our stitches way back here that I forgot. But hopefully everything will line up. If not, we will make this other side front match this one, no matter what. But that's the main thing. The 2 fronts are the star of the sweater, unless we're putting some design in the back, which we'll do at different times. But right now, it's just to get you back into sweater mode. So I have counted, and I have 30 stitches. So make sure you make a note or know how many stitches you have, because we're going to have to decrease this side down and make sure that we have 30 stitches or whatever your stitch count for your size. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to cap this side, and then I'm going to take and just measure out like an arm's distance of yarn, just about as long as my arm. And I'm going to take my little bread tie, and I'm just going to go ahead and save this for when we do the 3 needle bind off. If I need it, it's already there, connected. So I'm just going to wrap it around. Remember our little bread ties as our little bobbins, or you can, if you don't have these, just about everybody has. You can just take a little piece of cardboard or anything. But anyway, have some yarn ready to go when we get back and ready to connect. Now the next step, let's see, can I do without having to reset the camera? That's that front. Now when you're wearing your sweater, everything is reversed. When you're wearing your sweater, okay, this is the left side and this is the right side. But when you're looking at it, make sure I'm back on camera. As you can see, we had to lean to the right. We had to lean to the right for this because we're looking at it, and that's how we wanted the neck to come around. Now on this side, we need to lean to the left. We needed to come around and meet the back like that. All right, now let's see if I need to reset, or can I work from where I am. So on this side when I left, yeah, I think that's pretty good. I could even come in a little bit. Just to make sure. Okay, so I'm going to remove this one pin so I can have the front of my sweater to work on. You see I've left some yarn on my little thing, so that's just so that I don't have to start right here connecting yarn. It just looks so, the more you have to connect on the edge, front edge, I just can't stand that. Alright, when I left, or when we left this side was where we stopped the lace, and now we're ready to bind off. We have not bound off the edges on this front. We had to bind off on this side, on the purl side. But we can do it on the knit side right here. So we had everything ready, so I won't repeat that. We're just ready to start binding off these first 12 stitches. It was a lace, it was a 3 stitches for the border, 1, 2, 3, and then 9, so that's 12 stitches, and I did leave my marker, thank goodness. I did something right. Alright, so, and then I have my yarn on my little bread tie, just so I'll have some yarn when I came back. Didn't have to try to connect and do all of that. This just works out a lot easier that I had it ready. So I'm going to pull off some, and then we're just simply going to start to bind off. Now, I'm just going to work with these shorter needles. They might be better. So I'm going to do I knit the first 2 stitches. Then you just simply reach back and bind off. This side was the easy side to bind off. It was the other side we had to do it on the purl side. So now I'm just going to knit. This is really hard working with these needles. Let's see if I can stick my hand in the tripod. No, I'll hit the tripod. Okay, let me just come up this close like this. Here we go. I just need to find the right angle. So I'm just knitting and binding off. Just keep it loose, just like you normally would bind off. Just going to bind off. Hope I'm not going up too high. Sorry for this angle, but man, it's so strange working with straight needles after all these years. Oh, I have so many, like I told you before. And then once I turn the corner and start working on circular needles, bye-bye straight needles. Bye-bye. So now I'm coming up to the mark where I have, but I still have 1 stitch that needs to be bound off. You see that? So now I can get rid of the marker, and I just borrow this stitch over here. I knit it, and then I use that stitch to reach back and bind off that stitch. So that's the front edge. And now all I have to do is to continue to knit across. Let me just check something here. We'll just knit across, just like this. I can't remember if I, let me stop and think a minute. Okay. On this side, we had to purl to do the bind off, and then we knit back and did our first decrease. Okay, so if I knit across and purl back, then I can do the decrease on the next right side row. I think I'll be okay. You always have this little catch-22, because one side is the right side and one side is the left side. And it's always, so I don't know if I used to do the decrease on the very first row. No, that wouldn't make any sense. Let's continue on. See, I have to just, sometimes you have to think yourself through it. Since I haven't done these in a long time, I had to stop and think myself through it, or go back and look at my own videos, or check any notes that I may have made. So I'm just knitting across real quick. Just want to do I can get rid of this long straight needle. Well, there's so many stitches. All right, let me just stop. I'm wasting battery. All right, so now you can see. Can you see that? We have this front is ready. It's check, check, check. Everything is done. This one we're checked, and we've bound off the lace edge. We've stopped the lace right there, just like we did here, and we're binding off. We're able to bind off on the right side, and I'm going to knit across. Then I'm going to purl back, and then I will be ready to show you the decrease on this side. So let me continue to knit across and purl back and not waste not waste battery. All right? What do you think? How does that look? Is it looking like a sweater? All right, I'll be back in just a minute. All right, so I have purled back. Now I am on the right side, and I'm ready to make the first decrease on this side of the sweater as we look at it. Okay? And we need it to lean to the left. Now, like I say, I'm not a professional knitter, but I try to, read and look and watch videos, and learn from people that know a lot more than I know. And look, it looks like when they're doing garments, they prefer to slip one, knit one, pass the slip stitch over. Well, I don't know. In my mind, I would just do the slip, slip, knit. So, let's just see which one what it looks like. Maybe we can see a difference. I don't know. All right, let me pull a little yarn. All right, that first stitch, no matter what, to match this side over here, remember, I just knit that first stitch, trying to keep the edge straight or clean. Now, I would just normally do a slip, slip, knit. So I'm just going to do one. Slip, slip, then reach my needle back. Well, I just botched that. My yarn split so bad. Okay, now I'm going to reach my needle back and just... Whew! Fiddly, fiddly, fiddly. Okay. Well, it's leaning to the left. I don't see. Now let's just try the other one. I don't know. You're going to have to see it on your own. You may not be able to notice anything on mine. I'm just showing you the difference. All right, now I'm going to pull that yarn out. I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to pick those two stitches back up. I'm going to pop them back on my needle, and I'm going to see if I see something. Like I said, I just notice, as I'm trying to learn, increase my skills. All right, this is what you see. Slip one, knit one, now reach back and pass that slip stitch over. So let me see if I look over here at this decrease to see how it looks. See how this one looks. I can't really see, but maybe there's something to it. So, just to get some practice and get an idea of another or a different decrease, they're both leaning to the left. We are going to try slip one, knit one, reach back and pass the slip stitch over. Those are extra steps to me, but you know what? We got to learn. So now all I have to do, remember, however many you did on this side, you have to do it on this side. So let me go ahead and knit across, purl back, and let's see what the second one looks like. So I'm going to just knit a few stitches like this. I'm going to lay it down a minute and just see if I see a nice lean to the left. Well, I guess so. There it is. It's the second stitch, remember? The first stitch I just knit to keep it easy. Alright, I'm going to continue to knit across this row. We're working this side now. Then I'll purl back and I'll see you at the next decrease. And you got to keep up with them. Make sure. So I am doing 10 because I had to do 10 on this side. Small to medium, you're doing 8. If you're larger than 2, if you're 2X or larger, or taller or just broader, you're going for 12 decreases. All right, I'll be back in just a minute. All right, so I purled back, so now I'm on the right side again, ready for my second decrease. I've marked my first one down on my little tally sheet. Well, it's looking pretty good. I don't know, maybe this slip one, knit one, pass a slip stitch over, maybe it'll win me over. All right, now I'm going to kind of have to turn my hand at this angle. All right, the first stitch, I'm ready for the second one now. So the first stitch I knit, everywhere. Then I get to where I'm going to do the decrease. So I'm going to slip one if you're on that camp, or if you just say, no, Jay, I use slip, slip, knit. Okay, we'll have a discussion, but let's do it first. So I'm going to slip the next stitch. After I knit that first one for the edge, slip one, then I knit the next stitch, reach back. That's what you have to remember, though, to reach back and pass the slip stitch over. Now I can knit off, just knit across. I'm going to do it on every right side row until I completed my 10. I had 10 on this side, so that means I have to have 10 on this side. Now you can look at yours. I don't know if you can see mine as clear as you're going to be able to see yours, but there it is in the blue. And it's laying flat, kind of like my knit two together over here. So knit two together, leans to the right, decrease. Either you're in the camp of slip one, knit one, pass the slip stitch over, or the slip, slip, knit for the edge of our sweater. So let me know in the comments, especially all you advanced knitters. You know, I do have advanced knitters that follow me because they give me good tips. A lot of times they say, oh, Jay, do this, or you could have done this, or have you tried this? So that's, I appreciate it. All right. But now it looks, I don't know what the word to say. It doesn't look as clean to me as a slip, slip, knit. I'm going to bring mine up a little closer. It just doesn't look as clean. All right, I may switch back. I don't know. All that's going to be covered, people. Don't worry about it. It's going to be covered when we pick up stitches. So tell me which camp you're in. The slip, slip, knit for the front edge of the sweater, or, the decreasing edge, or the slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over. Okay, so now I'm going to continue to work, and I'll have to choose, and then I will work my 10 decreases on this side, and then work those extra rows. The main thing is when you stop, and like I said, there's always a catch-22 in knitting. If you haven't learned that by now, because there's a right side and left side, there's always the one row difference. So, but after you knit, to get the extra rows, after you do all your decreases and get the extra rows, the main thing is to have your needle pointing in the direction of this needle. This is the back needle right here. And like I said, hopefully you stopped and counted your stitches, and make sure that once you're done with 10 decreases, you have the same number on your needle as this side. I had 30. So if I see that I have to make an extra decrease, we have to do it. They have to match. But nobody will know that. So there are some catch-22s in knitting because you have different sides. All right, so now all we have to do is continue to decrease, and I will see you back shortly. And then, like I said, in the comments, you can let me know which camp are you in. All right, back shortly. All right, now let's go through our checklist and let's see what we have. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. All right, we have completed one front of the sweater, and I was left with 30 stitches. And to make a note, count your stitches to make a note of how many you had. This side, as you can see, I did 10 decreases for my side. For my size, and my size group. And then on this side, I did 10 decreases. And you can see how they lean just the opposite direction, which is what we want, so that we can go up and meet the back of our sweater. And I have 30 stitches on this needle, just like this. I hope you came out. If you did not, then all you had to do was just somewhere near the end of something, knit two together, something to hide it. Maybe, you picked up a stitch here and there, or if, don't panic if you come out and maybe you was a stitch off here or there. That's fine. We can increase or decrease right in this area now. But there's and I have my my point protectors on. So now I can lay this down, and now you can look to see what we have. We have two fronts that match. We have our lace. We have the back. You can clearly see the back now that it extends up. Now we can actually go ahead and bind from what we have finished, or since we finished each front. This is why it's so important to finish the fronts and make sure they match. Now this tells me I can go to the back. Whatever number of stitches you have on this needle, go to your back and count them off and put a mark. We don't care, you don't have to worry about that. And always start from this end counting. I had 30, so I'd count 2, 4, 6, and I'd count 30. And then I'd put a marker. Does that make sense? Now I know these two are going to match here. Anything here, all right, now you start on this end over here. Always start on the edge. Count in to the same number, because I wound up with 30 stitches on both these needles. And I put a mark there. That simply tells me these are the stitches that we will do the 3 needle bind off here on this side. See how easy it is now? And then here. The markers, in between the markers is the back of the neck, and that's where we're going to bind off stitches next. Now how easy and simple is that? Simply by making sure that you have your 2 fronts, everything match, your numbers match, everything. And okay, I gotta admit, I'm falling into the camp. I changed my mind. You know, a lady can change her mind if she wants to. I'm falling into the camp of the slip, slip, knit. Because it looks so much like my knit 2 together. But just leaning in the opposite direction. There's a slip, slip, knit. Here's my knit 2 together. Look, they're like twins. And then for me, the slip one, knit one, pass the slip stitch over, it just interrupts my rhythm. But now, we're still taking comments on which camp you're in. So now, check, 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 check. We got checks everywhere. All right, so the last thing since now all this is correct, just take a good look. And give yourself a big sigh. Everything looks great. Everything's in place. The numbers match. So now all we have to do is work. I'm going to flip it over. We're going to work on the back, and I'm going to show you how to bind off the back neck, and then we can do a 3 needle bind off. Yay! All right. Let me flip everything, and I'll be right back. All right. I flipped the work over, and now I have a nice clean back to work with. I worked it up, to the length that I needed, and now we will close off the neck or bind off the neck, and our 2 shoulders will be separated so that we can connect with each front. All right, so I have connected some yarn. I just did my little knot thing, tied me some yarn on, and I'm starting from this edge. As I work over, I'm just knitting across. I am still on my circular needles. Years ago when I first started, way back in the day, I would do all the transfer and put them on 2 separate needles and stuff, and then one day it just hit me. Why don't you just leave it on the circular needle or put it on one? That way it's already, because there's a point on each end of the circular needles. So now I'm just taking my time and just knitting over to the stitches we have marked that represent the neck. Oh, and now if you count these stitches, you're going to notice there's 1 extra stitch. Like, oh. And do you remember why we had the 1 extra stitch? Because we had the 1x1 ribbing. And remember I said if I don't do any kind of design or something on the back or anything where that stitch is going to interfere or anything, I just let it ride up. It's just something I just got used to. So when I counted, I had 1 extra stitch, which is fine because it's in the neck. It's going to be right here. Each front, each side, you have marked. It's the same number of stitches for each front. So now all we have to do is just go over to the mark and start binding off those stitches. Isn't this easy? When you go back and you, like I said, now you may not be like me. You may not jump up tomorrow and start another sweater like this. You may say, Jay, okay, I got to have a rest. But I guarantee you, if you watch the video again without knitting or without trying to work another sweater, you just watch and you just kind of listen, kind of going through. You don't have to listen to me doing all the talking, just kind of saying, okay, yeah, I know that step. Yeah, I know this step, you know, because each one I listed the steps. Oh yeah, now I know what to do. I know how to count, make things match. You'll be surprised. The next time you will knit this sweater a whole lot faster. And like I said, as we go through the sweater collection that I'm working on this year, in between other short projects, I've got some cute short things, just like I just did that heart scarf, the sweetheart scarf. We'll do that scarf and put different stitches and different neck, you know, other stitches to go with it. It's gonna be really pretty. All right, so I'm up to the marker. I know now that this starts the neck. Can you see my red marker there? And now all these stitches. So I simply start. I have to go over here and do 2 stitches. I have to knit 2. Let's see. Knit 1 stitch, then knit the next stitch. Then I reach back and bind off. That's in the neck area. Now bind off loosely. Try to do it nice and loose, just like you normally, you know how we try to get you to bind off. Alright, knit the next stitch, reach back, and loosely bind off. Don't pull it or make it tight. Knit the next one and bind off. Okay, next one and bind off. I stop every inch or so and I pull, kind of loosen my stitches up. There, and bind off. Again, knit, bind off. Sometimes you just can't go by just a pattern, what number. Everybody's going to have your own number. Most neck stitches will fall in the range of either 24 stitches, 28 stitches, or 32 stitches. That's what that's usually how it works because of my system of how I round things up to numbers divisible by 4. My numbers are compatible. So I'm going to speak up my heat. My heat just kicked on. So I'm just binding off nice and loose across. Can you see that? I'll stop in just a minute. I stop and I loosen it up. Now look at that. You see my mark? Okay, now I'm on my way to the opposite mark right there. I know my heat's on, but I'm going to keep going. I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. I'm so excited. It looks so pretty. It looks like a sweater now. You don't know how discouraging this can get. You be thinking, is this going to work? Look, are they going to run me off of YouTube? Are they going to put a sign up and say, gone fishing? We've had to take this lady off because she just... Okay. It's a daunting task to try to, you know, share something that you do every day, you know, or all the time. And of course it's kind of easy to me. Oops, there's got a split yarn. The way my system, because I have my own little system. And I do. And I used to follow other people's patterns, but okay, I see that I'm coming up to the mark. I hope I'm on the camera. Can you see it? It just kind of slipped out of the way, but there it is right there. All right. Just quickly go ahead and bind off. I'm coming up to the mark. I'll stop in just a minute. Let me get up here. There it is. Here's the stitch. Now watch. I bind off. But this stitch is on this side of the marker, so it has to be bound off also. Always remember that. So you just go over and bar this stitch on the other side of the marker, reach back, knit it, and then reach back and bind off that last stitch on the marker. Now you just simply knit across. Now I won't take time to do all that, but I'm gonna, let's just see. knit a few stitches. And then we can talk. Well, I'm so close. Let's see how quick I can knit. Oh, that feels so good. My feet were cold again. The other day in hot, I'm outside of Atlanta. I forget to tell people that sometimes. They probably wonder, where's that lady? Out of Atlanta, Georgia. The hot ATL. We were down to 24 degrees the other morning. We woke up, my husband was just so cold. Oh my gosh. Oh, and I didn't start, well, I went out and I made sure I started my car sometimes during the day. Because we're just not used to that kind of cold. Of course, we didn't have any snow, and it wasn't anything like what people are having all over the country, so I'm not even going to compare it. But for us in the hot ATL, 24 degrees is like when people in Florida get down to 40. They think, oh my God. Well, 24 degrees was cold in Atlanta, people. All right. Now, I made it all the way across. Let's see if I'm on camera. Hope it was. Look at it. Zoom in just a little bit so you can see. Now, look at that. There is the bound off neck edge right there. Those stitches. And now I have 2 back shoulders now that will meet, that I can now, see, can I pull it over? That I know now will be the correct number of stitches to meet the front, and we will be able to do the 3 needle bind off. There's my arm space, or for my sleeve, that we will pick up. Right there. Does that make sense? All right. Let me reset, get set. Let's take a breath, and I will demonstrate the 3 needle bind off for you again. All right, back in just a minute. All right, so now we are going to finally get to our 3 needle bind off of one front of the sweater and the back portion, the shoulder portion of the back here. So the first thing you have to remember when doing a 3 needle bind off, and the most important, is to turn your sweater and put right sides together, just like if you were sewing. You know how you turn the fabric and put right sides together so the two outsides, wrong sides are showing. So right sides together. We have counted our stitches, and we know that we have the same amount of stitches on each needle. We've already bound off the neck. So the next thing to do is simply do our 3 needle bind off. And I've got a little extra yarn on one of my little bobbin things. Oh, let's see, make sure I can get it off. Okay. And now I take I have this short little double pointed needle that I use, so that I don't have to work with another long needle like this, having 3 kind of long needles trying to work. So you might try just a double pointed needle, even if it's not short, but it might be a lot easier. All right, so right sides are facing. I have some yarn. It doesn't matter which needle the yarn comes off of, whether it's on this needle or that one, as long as you have some yarn to do so we can bind off. And it's just like we regular bind off, but we're just going to be doing 2 needles at a time. So the first thing I want to do is take this needle, and I'm going to stick it under the first loop of that needle, just like that, and then the first loop. Now I'm going to pull it down and get in there, just like that. Now I take the yarn, and I'm going to knit the loop off that needle and take it off, and then bring that same loop through, so I have knit both of those stitches off each needle. just like we regular do our regular bind off. But I need 2 stitches to get it started. So I'm going to knit again and then go into that, under that loop. You may have to keep it, kind of keep it from getting too loose, and then bring it through on the front needle. Now I have 2 stitches, right? And every once in a while you got to keep pushing these stitches so they don't drop off. All right, you see that? Now I simply reach back, and you can take any of the needles and just reach back. Oops. And bring the first loop, just like you regular bind off, over that loop and off. Now, it'll be awkward at first. See, and I haven't done it in a while, but I know after a few minutes it loosens up and you find a rhythm and it just works. Now, there's every 2 stitches, stop, reach back, and bind off. Now, try not to pull it tight, keep it loose. Under, you can take them one at a time, under and under. See how it's a lot easier with this short. Pull it through and then pull it through that one. Take them off, but reach back and bind off. Because sometimes you'll find yourself knitting. A lot of times I'll find myself knitting halfway across and didn't bind off. I guess it's just the motion and the rhythm of it. So there it is under both loops from this needle and that needle. Wrap the yarn around the needle. Then bring it through the first loop, and then bring it through this loop. Oops. It fell off. Just bring it through, take it off. Now, be careful, one of my loops fell off. Now I reach back and I bind off. Just like you would be binding off a scarf or anything else. Like I said, it's a little fiddly at first. And sometimes I've lost my rhythm, but it will come back. So 1, come through, pull it off both. Now reach back and bind off. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go across the row, and then we'll be able to look at it and see what we have. Alright, back in just a minute. Alright, I thought I'd come back as I got to near the end of the row. Every once in a while, just a little tip, just stop and check your stitch count. Like I said, especially if you're still new, and like I said, all of this takes practice and you don't have a rhythm yet. So you kind of like, okay, I don't know. So you can just stop just along the way when you're holding the 2 needles together, these that have the stitches on them, and just check and see if you have the same stitch count on each needle. So 2, 4, 6, 7. And let's try to check this one. 2, 4, 6, 7. So okay, so I know that I've picked up stitches from both needles. Alright, so now I'm going to just continue to all the way across. I know people complain about the drag on the bamboos, but I'm telling you, if you were trying to do this on some of those metal needles, I don't think you'd be saying nice things about me. You'd be like, I'm never going to watch that channel again. I'm never going to watch that lady again. So at least the bamboo holds the stitches on the needle. Yes, it has a lot of drag, but you know, once you get used to it, trust me. When these stitches go flying off, and then, okay, I'm going to check, stop. I got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I know that I'm sticking, going in that one, going in the, and if you kind of hold them together like that, yarn around the needle, pull it through both loops, front and back. Then you have to slide it right off. Hold the others with your thumb. Then reach back and lift that stitch over and off. Bind off. Like I said, it takes practice. It's a little fiddly at first, trying to get all this stuff to cooperate in one order 2 needles, well, 3 needles. Well, that's what it is, the 3 needle bind off. Getting the yarn to go. Okay, I'm down. I have 1 stitch on that needle and 1 on that one. Whew, woo! And I'm just going to take my time since I've come this far. The main thing is when you get up here, take your time and slow it down, because one mistake can just, oh, Jay, I got right to the end. Now I'm not sure what happened. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a nice loop for just a minute before I cut anything off. I can get rid of some of these needles. Let's get some of these out of the way. Whew, man, I have needles everywhere. And I'll move my camera just a little bit. Let's see, can I? Now I'm going to pull this up. I hope I was on camera. Now, we did that with the right sides facing, so when we turn the sweater like it should be, and I had already got the other side done. So now, look, we have a sweater. We have a sweater. We have, let's see now, I'll check the camera in just a minute. Let me just kind of get it here on the counter. Okay, now let's see if I can, if I'm picking that up. Yes, I am. Okay, so I need to bring it over this way a little bit. There's the 2 fronts, as much as I can get in the camera. Let's go out this way. That's as much. Maybe I can back it out a little bit. All right. Now, you see I have 2 fronts, and now we have 2 beautiful shoulder seams. There's one. It takes practice, people. Even for me, and I hadn't done one in a good while. So see, even I had to, you know, like, get my rhythm, keep going. So now I have the nice 2 shoulder seams. I have the back. Everything, the neck is bound off, and guess what? Now the next thing is, well, we've checked all our boxes. Everything is checked. We have a nice big arm space. That's the only thing I dislike about this particular style sweater, sweater number 1. That's the reason I want to go ahead and get it out of the way, where it's knit all in one piece. Then you wind up with this large arm space. So that means we're going to have to pick up a lot of stitches and try to do some decreasing and try to get this sleeve down to a size that hopefully will fit you just fine. But so the next thing I suggest, so that you won't run out of yarn, is that when I come back, instead of working the neckline, because that's simply going to be picking up stitches doing one by one ribbing. We're sailing then when we reach that. So I want to come back and I'll work one sleeve off camera, and then we'll come back and then we can work another sleeve, or I'll get it started with you and show you exactly how to pick up the stitches. I can't find myself on the camera. And we'll pick up stitches. Now this is when, for you know, seasoned knitters or advanced knitters, usually you go down a needle size if you want to when you're doing your sleeve. If you prefer, and if you have an 8/16, because our sweaters worked in 9, and you prefer to go down in size for your sleeve, just to make it a little, it just makes a nice transition. When we're doing it in the round, the sleeve is already included. It's already there, so you can't change the needle, or you'll change the gauge of the sleeve. But if you do have an 8/16, then go ahead and get your 8/16s ready, and we will pick up stitches. I'll show you how we'll start picking up stitches and working the sleeve in the round. Does that make sense? If you don't, you can use 9/16 if you just don't have it. But if you do have an 8/16, then that will take your sleeve down a little. It'll look a little nicer when we pick up this, because see, it has a large space. That's one reason I really stopped doing this style as much, but it's still fun. And I'll show you some when I come back on the next video. I'll show you some that I haven't even shown you yet, that I haven't had time. Well, they were from one of my slimmer days, so they have to be revamped. But I'll show you some of the early ones that I did just like this, and they're really nice. They're really nice sweaters. I just haven't shown them. I just haven't shared them with you. So I'll do that when I come back on the next. So we're gonna stop this video right here. We have finished each front. We have done our decreases. We have done the 3-needle bind off. Now we have an actual shoulder seam. Now you can actually try on your sweater and everything. And then when we come back, we will work the sleeve. We'll pick up stitches on the sleeve. Like I said, I suggest a number 8/16. If you had, I go ahead, especially if you have two, then we can go ahead and pick up stitches on both armholes. Save you a little time from having to go back and do it later. How about that? Well, I got a little pool right there. All right, so, whew. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're liking the results. It takes time. It's not for everyone. You know, some people just, don't care for large projects. But if you do, and you want to continue, then look, thank you so much for just hanging in here with me. So this is Jay, and this is Jay's Knit and Purl Jam, and I'll see you back in the next segment or the next step. All right, talk to you later.